What's the proper way for Christians to engage in the 2012 election? Focus on the Family has some suggestions. This is the Citizen Link Report. I'm Stuart Shepard along with my friend and colleague Gary Schneeberger, who handles media relations for us. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Stuart.
We're going to talk to you in a bit. We're also going to hear from Jim Daly and some of the comments he had on a radio show recently. But I also want to point out he had an op-ed in the Washington Post not too long ago.
He did
Focus
indeed.
is speaking out a bit about how Christians
Show
should
and
be
tell.
looking at things there.
On Friday, May 4th, that was in the paper.
And it's a good op-ed, and it talks about how we should be engaged. Tell me what the goal of that was. What are you hoping to get people to do?
Jim has not done a whole lot of talking about the election proper. So this is really Jim's sort of coming out party, if you will, talking about what voters should do on Election Day. And that really is just search your heart. What is the most important issues that are out there for you? And use that as a filter when you decide which candidates and, in fact, which races and how you're going to vote on those ballot initiatives and those kind of things as well. So really it's a straight ahead values voters kind of thing. Use your values as your filter, and also some stuff about just the way we engage the process. We're very fortunate in this country, Jim believes, and I think we all would agree, to have a voice in our government, and we should treat that system with respect and civility, and Jim talks a little bit about that as well.
He was on Mike Huckabee's radio program just a few days ago and talked about exactly this. Here's part of what he had to say.
In this election cycle, of course, we have two choices that many Christians may not feel comfortable with. And the point in the op-ed that I wrote for the Washington Post was really just to encourage people of faith, particularly to remember that we're voting in an executive, not a priest or a rabbi or imam here. We're trying to identify who can lead the country and lead government well.
Now, Gary, I've had more than a few private conversations with people where they expressed exactly that thought. They're trying to figure out what to do and how to view this. How should Christians be looking at this election?
It really is about which candidate best represents what you would like to see happen in our country. What direction do you want our country to go? What policies would you like to see passed? Jim makes a point, no candidate, not in this election and in previous elections. I try to do a search in my memory banks. Have I ever voted for someone who was 100% perfect the way I would view it? No. Everybody, all the policies that these folks have to pass, all of the things they say to the 24-hour news cycle, all of the speeches they've given, something's going to rub you the wrong way perhaps.
Yeah.
The key is to look at those candidates, put your values as a filter over the top of that, and decide which one most closely aligns with your deeply held values.
Now, of course, before you can do anything in the election coming up as far as voting, you have to be registered to vote. And Focus on the Family has a major initiative that it's working on to get people registered. Tell us a little bit about it.
It is called CommitToVote2012.com. The goal there is to reach 50 million people who are not actually right now registered to vote, and to encourage a high percentage of those folks to vote. Jim said something interesting when he was talking to Governor Huckabee on the radio, and that was, we did a survey a few years back of Focus on the Family folks, people who are our constituents, and found that about 50% of them aren't registered to vote. So what we're trying to do is make it easy for them to do it. I found a study that the Pew Research Center did a few years back about people who vote all the time, intermittently, rarely, and never. Yeah. And the registered but rares and the not registered give some of the same kinds of things you hear. What goes on in D.C. doesn't affect me. I'm bored by what goes on there. And it's almost the exact same percentage between registered but rare voting and not registered. Where it jumps up for not registered is when it says sometimes too busy. 43% of people who are not registered say they're sometimes too busy. That's got to include they're too busy to register. And One of the things that Focus is trying to do through this program is to make it simple for people. It'll be right there in their homes, it'll be right there online, and they'll be able to take a part in this process that people fought and died for.
Yeah, and the short version is if you go to that website, you can download a voter registration form, fill that out, and then mail it in. It's a pretty simple process to do.
Yeah.
Jim had something else to say about this, and it had to deal with how we speak into this. And he talked about the fact that the culture has led us as Christians to become more like pundits, when really we should be more coming more from a perspective of humility and coming into this with a bit of grace. Here's what he had to say on that topic.
Nobody has a corner on perfection or righteousness. And what we need to do is to be humble and to engage the dialogue, exercise our right to vote. And I think the Christian values that are really core to the Bible are things that most fair-minded people would agree with.
The interesting part about that is it's like life, everyday life, and your conversations with your friends and family. Hopefully, when you're having one of those robust discussions about something that you may not agree with,
Spirited.
Right, spirited. The idea is that you want people to be persuaded to your way of thinking. And as Christians, that's particularly important because we're witnesses for Christ, for one thing.
Yeah.
But secondarily, hopefully, if we believe that what we hold dear is the way that the country should go, the values that we hold dear is what's best for this nation, then we owe it to the process to engage in a way that's persuasive rather than sort of denigrating. So I think what Jim's getting at there is saying that, yes, be passionate, be ardent in what you believe, don't back up an inch, but express it in a way with an eye toward persuading those who might not, embrace what you believe so that they can see the wisdom in what you see, and that is what changes culture in the country.
Now, I want to give you just a moment to speak directly to people who are watching who may not be registered to vote, who know they should be, but just haven't quite gotten to that point, or maybe perhaps just now getting interested in things political. If you could speak to them directly, what would you say?
It doesn't take long to do, and it's extremely important. Some will come at it from a negative perspective. Well, if you don't vote, why, you can't grumble and complain about anything that happens. I would switch it on its positive side and say, voting allows you the opportunity to have a say in how our country's run, have a say in the kind of America your children and your grandchildren grow up in. Some people can say that sounds cheesy, some people can say that sounds naive. It's really true, and you only have to go back to 2000 and that election and the very, very, very few number of votes that won the state of Florida in that case. Yeah. Clearly, the idea that my vote doesn't matter is sort of blown out of the water then. It doesn't take a lot of time, but when you think about the time it takes, think about the value that time produces in terms of fruit for the country and for your family. There's really, we waste a lot of time in this country, and this is a good opportunity to do something that's actually productive and not a time waster.
If you got time to hang out on Facebook, you've got time to register.
Absolutely. In fact, I probably hang out on Facebook enough times to register 37 times a day, if that's what I want to do.
We don't encourage that.
No.
All right, Gary, thank you for taking time to share with us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate that. We do encourage you to check out committovote2012.com. You can listen to the entirety of Jim's radio interview there, and also see the process to register to vote. If you are not registered, we encourage you to, and if you have friends who are not registered, we encourage you to also get them connected and into the process.
And can I interrupt for a second?
Oh, yeah.
His op-ed is also available at committovote2012.com, so you can read his Washington Post piece there.
It's a good read.
It is.
All right. And you may always write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. We love hearing your questions, comments, criticisms. We read everything that comes in. Can't always answer all of them, but we do appreciate hearing from you and want to know what you think about all of this. We encourage you to pray for our nation as we all decide for whom to vote in the upcoming election. Help us all to have wisdom and clarity of thinking and to figure out who best represents the values that we hold dear. And remember, stand tall and be heard.